just wanna spread love and peace and all of my happiness, yeah, to everyone that I meet. You could try to turn off the sun, I'm still gonna shine away, yeah, and tell everyone we're having some fun today. We can go wherever you wanna and do whatever you like. Let's just have a real good time. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum, yeah. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum, yeah. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum, yeah. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa
wabarakatuh.
nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina may yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa may yudlil fala hadiya lahu.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all prayers and praises be to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the Almighty God. Because of His blessings, we can attend this event in good health. Secondly, let us greet and pray to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, how are you, everybody? Are you still excited to join the second day of our series of webinar, our international conference?
Yeah. Today we have event from History and Cultural of Islamic Department. Now, before we go to our agenda today, we have a welcoming speech from our Head of History and Cultural of Islamic Department from Bapak Rizwinarno. For Bapak Rizwinarno, time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wa bihi nasta'inu ala umuri dunya waddin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajmain, amma ba'du. Praise be upon Allah the Almighty, the creator of the universe, the ruler of His creature, so that we can meet in this international seminar today. Prayers and greeting to our great leader, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to his family, sahabat, and as well all his faithful followers until the end of time. The Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Civilization and Cultural Studies, Islamic State University of Sunan Kalijaga, Mr. Muhammad Wildan, PhD. The speakers for this seminars, Mr. Suleiman Muhammad Hussein Boayo, PhD, from the Faculty of Development Management, Sultan Sharif Ali Islamic University, Brunei, Darussalam. Mr. Sujadi, PhD, from Faculty of Civilization and Cultural Studies, Islamic State University of Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. To the moderator, Mr. Sidik Setiawan, S.Hum. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and presence today. I also express my gratitude to all the committee members of the seminar who have worked hard to prepare this seminar. More specifically, thank you for guests attending at this seminar. The seminar terms the contribution of Islamic civilization in managing and rebuilding society in the after pandemic COVID-19 era, which aims to discuss the role of cultural sciences in dealing with the academic, social, and cultural life of the past COVID-19 pandemic. Through the seminar, the best strategies and solution sought as a contribution to Islamic culture in facing the COVID-19 pandemic, of in managing life during and after the pandemic. Hopefully, we all get a lot of valuable information in the seminar. By this, I, representing the entire committee, hope that this conference is beneficial to all. Happy attending the seminar and thank you. May Allah give His blessing. Amin. So my opening remarks I cover with Billahi Taufik wal Hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you for Mr. Deswinarno for such a great speech.
And now we're moving on to the next session, and I would like to introduce our moderator, Mr. Sidik Setiawan. Time is yours.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
And well, it's been a pleasure as well for me to be here and to attend this virtual or digital seminar and conference. And today I've been assigned by the university to be the moderator. And I'd like to say thank you very much for all of you who attend today, and also for Mr. Suleiman Mohammed Hussein Boayo, PhD. And thank you very much. And the next one is for our next speaker, Mr. Dr. Sujadi. And well, since today we're going to have these two speakers, first of all, let me introduce our first speaker before we move into our second speaker. So our first speaker today is going to be Mr. Suleiman Mohammed Hussein Boayo, PhD, from Faculty of Development Management, Sultan Sharif Ali Islamic University, Brunei, Darussalam. And he's going to talk about Adab as a disciplinary mechanism and its impact on human life. And for all of you, the audiences, should you expect for some question and answer session? We can do it later after the second speaker done with the presenting the papers. And thank you very much for Mr. Suleiman Mohammed Hussein Boayo, PhD. Time is yours.
Boleh enable the screen sharing hostnya. So they have enabled it.
Would you like to have a share screen?
Yes.
Okay, so let me adjust accordingly. Wait a second.
Mbak, dia minta untuk share screen.
Okay. So you may also share the screen from your end. Is it available to do that from your computer?
It's disabled. It is disabled.
It is disabled. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, then we can go on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I would like to thank the UIN for inviting me for this important topic of how can we use Adab al-Islami to solve our problems, especially after the COVID-19. This is an important issue because current days, many people do not think about Adab al-Islami in solving this kind of the problem. Therefore, my paper today is going to explore how we are going to use Adab al-Islami in solving problems, because this is the eminence of the Adab al-Islami. Unlike Adab al-Islami, which is meant as an Arabic literature. So I will start with the term Adab. Please, is it clear? Is my voice clear, please?
Yes, I can hear your voice pretty clear.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
So I will start by the term Adab. In Arabic language and also in Islamic perspective. The term is derived from the root word Adab, with its difference of the past tense Adaba and Adaba, if we want it to be transmissive. The Adaba from which Ta'dib, the term Ta'dib is derived, and which means to teach as well as to instruct. If we look in the Ibn Manzur, and Ibn Manzur is very known in his explanation of the Arabic terms in a very broad way. If we look into, he said that it is a synonymous to allama. Allama also means to instruct. It also means to teach, which means to teach. Al-Zajjaj, one of the Muslim scholars as well, attributed it to Allah, Allah's manners of teaching his prophet. And in Taj al-Arus, we see Adab means to learn how to nurture, to train your soul to learn good character. And this is the main concentration of my paper. So the term also means character. It also means manner, and that are fruit of spiritual culture, that it has connection to akhlaq. I will emphasize that the term adab has a durable connection to akhlaq, which means that the purification of character and characteristics of the human beings. Ta'dib, which is the gerund of adaba, means to refine, educate, to discipline. And this is where I derive the topic of my talk today. Adab as a disciplinary mechanism in solving our problems, especially which has impact on the human life. Therefore, if we see in Encyclopedia of Islam, the etymology of the word put forward in earliest meaning, adab was formed from da'ab. And da'ab means custom, means the norm of people. It means what people do in their conventional days. So the Arabic terms are very elastic, and it bears so many meanings, sometimes in one term. I will start in the pre-Islamic time. In the pre-Islamic time, the word adab, the active participle of the past tense of the term adib, meant the host. It means the person who invites guests. Therefore, we see the Arabs were always boasting. Anyone who invites, it means that he is a generous people. So we listen to their poet who is saying that نحن في المشتات ندعو جفلا ولا ترى آدب منا ينتقر. It means that in the winter time, you see we invite everybody. You won't see any host among them who invites some people. This shows the generous. That was during the pre-Islamic time. In early Islam, the meaning of the term adab were words, behavior, conduct, and good behavior as well. In the Holy Quran, we will not see, for instance, the term adab, any derived word of the verb adaba, but the word and some derivation are mentioned in the Prophet of Hadith and in the saying of the prophetic companions, Ashab al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and in the poems of Arab, especially the poems of Sayyidina Ali. If we look into the Nahj al-Balagha, in the period of Abbasid, Mamluk, and Ottoman period, the meaning of the term were namely words, behavior, conduct. A good behavior had evolved to what Abbasi thinkers call adab. And also, they also use it at adab of soul, adab of an-nafs, and adab of study, and adab of das. The adab of soul here is my concern because it is origin of adab of study. And Al-Haris defined this as what one has to do and how he himself should become in his behavior, character, action in studying. This quotation of Al-Harisi shows us how the dynamic the term adab is and how can we use it to solve our problems. In the modern period, as for the usage of the term adab in the modern period, especially within the concept of adab of the soul, which I said it is my concern, the term like adab, al-ama, common adab, which means collection of rules and principles pertaining to the protection of sound morals, values, the preservation of family cohesion from what affects structure of the society and its goodness. That is why in the modern time we do have shurut al-adab, the police of adab in some of the Muslim countries is a squad of the police department who discipline people. So its duty is to protect society immoral behavior, majlis ta'dib in a board, in educational institution also, we have that. So I'm taking you closely how the adab can solve our problems because before I connect it to the adab al-Islami and explain to you what is adab al-Islami.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just being informed that the share screen is available now. Probably if you'd like to have it a try, you can try to do the share screen as well.
No problem, I will continue.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
So now let us look. Now we can see the following, the meaning of adab in this period. In summary, as I have mentioned, the adab in pre-Islamic period, adab in Islamic period, as well as the meaning of adab and its broad meaning in the modern period. We can summarize all by saying that adab means words. This emanates from the Prophet Hadith, law, the adab of Allah is the Quran. Adabullah huwa al-Quran. The adab of the soul. The adab of the soul is the origin of adab of study and defined by Al-Harisi Aidan like what one had to do and how he himself should become in his behavior, characters, actions, and sayings. Adab is besides spiritual sciences, it is the exercise of soul, discipline in body, the refinement of character. Tahzibul akhlaq. Number 4, it means behavior in Islam. Al-Ghazali explained this plainly, this kind of adab in his compendiums, adab in religious, al-adab fi din. He mentioned how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has disciplined us by disciplining his prophet beforehand, by virtue that our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Adabani Rabbi fa ahsana ta'dibi." My Lord disciplined me. This is how I explain the hadith. Some explain it, my Lord educated me. That is also exists, but I explain it as my Lord disciplined me and he made my discipline the best one, because the term adab, it has all these broad of the meaning. Adab of people, of habits of people. Al-Harisi also like the reality of light in garden divided adab into 2 kinds. Adab of usage and convention, what we do every day. Adab of practice and suitability. And this is the time that we need the adab of suitability in the period that we are living now. Therefore, all these type of adab, because of their variety on accounts of constant change and circumstances and habit, are unlimited in Arabic language and Islamic perspective. That was why I was very, very enthusiastic when I was nominated by my dean to participate in this because of this title. Then, the 10th meaning is the habit of people and their traditions are adab. That is why the term adab also, we can derive the term da'ub from that. It means what people do in their customs, what they do in their normal things by disciplining themselves. The adab of study in this period, the Abbasi, and also if we look at the Bukhari also in Sahih, Ibn Majah in also Sunan, and Abu Dawood brought poetry in the chapter of the adab because of its importance. So adab of study, however, was not confined to only poetry, because whenever we mention adab al-Islami or adab, people minds will strike to the poetry and also the prose. But if we see that Al-Bukhari, Al-Sahih, Al-Ibn Majah, Al-Sunan, and Ibn Dawood in Sunan brought poetry under the chapter of adab. Adab of study, however, was not only confined to the poetry and the prose only. Rather, it was expanded to include numerous branches of discipline. I always emphasize, as well as we shall see in the wake of discussion of also Al-Jurjani and also Jahiz and other Muslims and Arab letters. Now we come to Adab al-Islami. Adab means the noble and the human tendency of the character that manifests itself through the conduct of life and social intercourse. The metaphorical use of the term, which is parallel to this practical designation, is the knowledge that leads to an intellectual culture of higher degree and enables a more refined social intercourse. We need this at our present day to fight the COVID before and also after the COVID. The meaning of the term in early Islam, as I mentioned, namely is behavior or conduct or good behavior. That one has evolved to what the Abbasid thinkers call adab of the soul, adab of nafs, adab of study, adabs of dats, the adab of the soul, Here is our concern, I mention again, because it is the origin of adab of study. Adab, in general sense, or in accordance with Islamic viewpoint, is an integral expression of human life in its various situations, or an emotionally revisualization various human psychological and interactional phenomena in which we are now during this COVID. We have seen people in their psyche now. Nobody will wake up without thinking about COVID. Adab is the remedy for this, special Adab al-Islami. Adab depicts man in his life situation. It distinguishes man in his own humanity and in his unique being as responsible being who carried the message of vicegerency, meaning Khalifa. That is Adab al-Islami. So we are responsible of what is going on now of our pandemic. The Adab is the one which expresses the reality of human being and describes it as it is. It always honors in expression the balance and the middle path of human life. We need to take the middle path now as well. Adab emanating from the Islamic conception is guiding and disciplinary adab, given the fact that it's a religion that seeks constant renewal and promotion of life. Renewal and promotion of life, not stagnant. Adab emanating the Islamic conception is also in order to bring change or newly emerging phenomena. That is the summary of all the periods that I derived the Al-Adab. This above mentioned Adab is seen to be rightly to be deserved to call Adab al-Islami, Islamic Adab. Thus, it is Adab that embraces Islamic principles, for it is disciplinary mechanism in terms of how it changes human beings, especially their souls, with determination to fight everything and to confront everything. So we can use Adab al-Islami in the real fact to confront our current situation.
Okay.
For it is disciplinary mechanism in terms of how it changes human souls with determination, enlightens the minds with sound knowledge, and calls for compassion and standing by the truth, justice in solving the problems such as current situation of coronavirus pandemic that the world is confronting. The Islamic adab can impact human life by motivating it forward, releasing it from its illusions of whims that we are now in as a Muslims, because we depended now on the West, sitting by the open hands to come out with the vaccines that we are going to use to get out from the COVID, while we have Adab al-Islami that always activate our minds, that show us the determination, the discipline, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us in the Quran and taught his prophet, and also his companions follow the same way.
Okay.
In my conclusion, the earth was possessed or imbued with the adab of the soul, especially in Sufi thought. I don't want to forget this. In Sufi thought, the adab is always adab fi din. They don't even give heed to the adab of, which is Arabic literature. But the kind of adab been extinguished, please, in modern period by the fire of modernity and secularism. The Islamic countries are afflicted with the accidental imperialism, the stronghold of modernity and secularism, which impose their secular legislation and also implanted their ideas and way of life through Western education culture, and therefore Islamic adab and its implementation has been forgotten. We must return to Adab al-Islami to solve all our problems, especially the current problems. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for Mr. Suleiman Mohammed Hussein Boayo, PhD. Yeah, we're kind of running out of time a little bit. And let me move to the next speaker for today. That is going to be our second speaker. And he is Mr. Dr. Sujadi from UIN Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta. Let me read your CV for a moment.
Yeah.
So Mr. Sujadi was born in Cirebon, West Java in 1970. He is a lecturer at the Faculty of Letters in Cultural Studies, Sunan Kalijaga State Islamic University, Yogyakarta. From 1996 to 1998, he received a scholarship from the Indonesian Netherlands Corporation in Islamic Studies for a master program in Islamic Studies at the Leiden University, the Netherlands. In 2017, he obtained his doctoral degree from the same university. His interests include Muslim minority and Indonesian Islam. His published articles include Moroccan Muslim youths and their perspectives on being Muslim among Dutch society, and it was published in Sakafiyat Journal of Islamic History and Culture. And then the next one is the French Law of Naturalization in Tunisia by the Colonial Time, study of Rashid Rida's fatwa, and it was published Al Jamia Journal. So yeah, like it's very interesting from the very beginning of this session. So now I will introduce you to Mr. Sujadi, and Mr. Sujadi, time is yours. We have for about 20-25 minutes for you to deliver your presentation, and afterward we proceed to the question and ask, the Q&A session. Thank you very much. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sidik, for the time given to me. Now, I would like to, I have share my screen, so you may see also the notes on the screen. And I'm going to present Indonesians Muslim in Germany. It is about the religious identity formation and social integration before and during COVID-19 pandemic. So it is my topic. And I would like to tell you that it is a kind of preliminary research. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you about the new information, new data. Maybe then you can make comments, whatever about my topic and my presentation. So now I would like to start. In my introduction, I would like to deal with the definition of identity formation, social integration, and also I would like to tell you about the statistic of Indonesian Muslim. And the last one, I would like to present other groups, other ethnic groups of Muslim in Germany. So those are the introduction, and hopefully the introductions can guide us to deal with other things. In relation to identity definition, we have heard a lot about the definition itself. So here, identity is conceptualized as a process. So that's why we are concerning about the process of what? Process of addressing the ways in which people develop, evolves, and change their sense of self or who they say they are. And also sometimes identity is defined as a kind of not a fixed reflection of the modern self, but rather a formative practice. That is my concern. So then I'm focusing on formative practice, whereby individuals tell stories of who they are. Who are they? Who am I? And who are you, for example? And also, I would like to tell you about another definition about the identity, which is how shall I relate to other people, to the environment. So it is kinds of complex concept actually of identity. Of course, it comes from scholars, not only from Muslim but also from other non-Muslim thing. And in relation to the definition of social integration, I would like to focus on one definition about the social integration. So here I'm defining social integration by the willingness and ability of Indonesian Muslim community organization to participate in the organizational life of their environment. So this is my focus then. Of course, we recognize other kinds of integration, maybe cultural, political, and other things. So that's why here we see the diverse kinds of integration, maybe normative, functional, and coercive integration. So those are also the concepts of let's say social integration and integration itself. And I would like to inform you about the statistic of Indonesian Muslim in Germany. Of course, it is not easy to find out, to figure out the number of Muslims living in Germany, but it is one information. It is information deriving from the Agency for Migration and Refugees of Federal Republic of Germany. Then we can see here there are there were about 15,000 persons of Indonesian citizenship in Germany, and it is in 2014. And in 2015, we find the growth of their number. So we can see here 16,000, about 16,000 Indonesian citizens in Germany. So as I told you, it is not really easy to figure out the statistic, but of course it doesn't mean that the Indonesian embassy in Germany doesn't do anything. So I try to find out the figures of Indonesians Muslim in Germany, especially Indonesians people in Germany from the embassy. Then I can find it about more or less about 30,000 Indonesian officially registered by the Indonesian embassy. So of course there are differences, but of course it means a kind of efforts from many sides, either from government side or maybe from the Indonesians embassy side. So at least we can see the figure of Indonesians people in Germany. And here I can inform you as well about the other ethnic group of Muslim. We find here Turkish, Southeastern Europe countries such as Bosnia, Bulgaria, Albania, from Middle East as well, North Africa, including Moroccans, the rest coming from South Asia, Central Asia, Iran, for example, and Southeast Asia as well, and other parts of Africa. So those the introduction that might be given us guidance to deal with the Indonesian Muslim in Germany. In relation to the core of my presentation about the votes for religious identity formation and social integration. So here I would like to start from the efforts of Indonesian Muslim in Germany for religious identity formation. Of course, I divided into two sections: before the COVID-19 pandemic and during the COVID-19 pandemic. So hopefully then I can inform you about the efforts of Indonesian Muslim there. Just now we heard about the Adab or Islamic Adab from my dear colleague, Dr. Suleiman, about the Islamic Adab, and it is of course kind of historical perspective. And now I would like to deal with the topic by social anthropological approach. So it means involving the practice of Indonesian Muslim there. So maybe different from their normative principles, but of course we can see the example. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, we have YMIA, Young Muslim Association in Europe. It is Indonesian Muslim organization, but seemingly it responded to it was established to respond to the political situation in Indonesia. So that's why I think it is the picture of Indonesian Muslim, one picture of Indonesian Muslim affiliated to the organization at the time. It was established in 1975. And also this organization published a new newsletter like Al Insan, and it was a kind of efforts from the from the Young Muslim Association in Europe to let's say form its identity, but seemingly it concentrates on the political situation in Indonesia. So
Aku malu.
helps
Mbok dikan modus seminar.
to cope with, let's say, the current situation. 5 months after the central boards of this association was reactivated. Sujadi is chief of the association, crossed out in the translated Quran berdasarkan Pancasila on the basis of that's why it is a kind of opposing to the ruling government, and it is a picture about Indonesians Muslim in Germany. And now we find Another things of we call IWKZ. It is Indonesia's Wijsheid und Kulturzentrum, Center of Indonesian Wisdom and Culture. So in 1984, Indonesian Muslims tried to establish a mosque called Al-Falah. But then seemingly the Al-Falah should follow the prevailing regulation of the German government. So that's why this mosque established a foundation called IWKZ, or Indonesia's Wijsheid und Kulturzentrum, Center of Indonesian Muslim and Culture. It is one effort for the let's say Indonesian Muslim in Germany, and there are many things, many efforts made by the Indonesian Muslim in Germany, like try to join Berlin Mosque network. It is also an effort of Indonesian Muslim in Germany to not only to do social integration, but also to form their religious identity. It means no interference coming from the, let's say, Indonesian embassy, Indonesian government, but this association tries to do based on its own self-identity and religious identity. So that's why some efforts have been made by the center, and it is fruitful for Indonesian Muslim in Germany. Then also the association has established a cooperation with the Indonesian embassy. It means it has a good relation with Indonesian government, and also established a kind of partnership with the Goethe Institute, for example. Then it is also an effort of Indonesians foundation, Muslim foundation, to have a kind of integration and also identity formation. So here, I would like to tell you that IWKZ has reached out the let's say the results, has reached high results, good results to establish its identity, religious identity formation, and also the social integration, because this association has not only relation with Indonesian Muslim, but other Muslims as well. And of course, it is a kind of high or good achievements for Indonesian Muslim there. And I would like to tell you as well that this foundation has been, let's say, chosen by the Integration Commission of the Department of Federal Republic of Germany. So this is good news for Indonesian Muslim living there. So this is the practice, I mean the achievements of Indonesian Muslim living in Germany. But now also we have Indonesian Muslim have a center of service and information, PKAs, the Party of Prosperous Justice, established in the beginning of let's say year 2000s. And actually this party has also tried to establish religious identity formation, religious identity itself, not based on the others foundation or organization, but based on its own identity. It is a party, so that's why it's used its own way in order to attract many followers, many people to be, let's say, its members. So that's why it's used manhaj tarbiyah. Tarbiyah means tarbiyah methods, a system of improving their ways and forming cadre for the party. So this is a kind of awards for the PIPPKS. Then a lot of things coming from this party have attracted many people, especially Indonesians, Muslim living in Germany. So that's why the party has won public election competition, let's say we call competition. It is a great achievement of this party or center actually. Now, I would like to try to little bit jumps to the let's say during the COVID-19 pandemic about their efforts of religious identity formation. It seems to me that the Indonesians Muslim in Germany have been more open-minded and productive because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Why? This condition demand their respects to, let's say, not only non-Muslim, but also to the regulation coming from the government, for example. So that's why we can see here during the lockdown, for example, prayer call during lockdown is has been done by the Muslim people, Muslim living there. So it is good news. Usually it is hard to do that, but during the lockdown, then it is easy for them. It is might be, as Dr. Suleiman said, Islamic principle has been exercised by the people the Muslim people living there. After losing lockdown, Muslim respect the government regulation. So it is a common phenomena then as found in Muslim countries. Following prescription made by the, let's say, German's Muslim Coordination Council. So it is also kind of respect of this council to the government's regulation. Then about the efforts for social integration before the COVID-19 pandemic, I have told you about the efforts of Indonesian Muslim living there, and I think it is good for us to have that kind of phenomenon, even though their efforts are still limited or maybe confined to the, let's say, some non-Muslim groups, because social integration is not enough, not only for their own ethnic Muslim group themselves, but also should reach other non-Muslim groups, especially the German society there. So that is the involvement, the ability of their integration with the prevailing organization, group as well, situation. So that's why it is kind of challenge for Indonesians Muslim living there. So those efforts are example for the social integration of Indonesians Muslim there before the COVID-19 pandemic. So then now I would like to deal with the their social integration during the COVID-19 pandemic. during the COVID-19 pandemic, we can see here people. It is my preliminary research, so that's why I'm looking forward to hearing from you about the new data, new information. Muslims voluntarily deliver foods for breaking fasting to those fasting and poor or all people non-Muslims. So we can see here the kindness of Muslim people, including Indonesians people living there too, do that. It is a rare phenomenon, I think, because during the normal situation, it happens, but not as much. But at the time, it was so much. So it is important for us. And I can see here from the, let's say, the foundation Iwekaze, as I mentioned, online tutorial, diverse activities, online charity, and also online tournament of Mobile Legend. So it is a kind of productivity or the creativity of Indonesians Muslim there. Before we have never seen that kind of phenomenon, but currently we can see the phenomenon. So I think it is also good news for us because they are more productive and also creative. And I think for the efforts of both various of fields, religious identity formation and social integration needs a kind of requirement. What is the requirement then? The requirement is to be ummatan wasato. This is the principle, the really the principles for let's say having a good social integration and also religious identity formation. Because without it, I think it is impossible for those living there to do social integration or to have a good identity formation. Because assume I think people living in the Western country should have the kinds of principle of ummatan wasato. This is in line with Professor Vizul's saying that it is impossible, or the Muslims should have that kind of principle of moderate tolerance and etc. in order to have a dialogue and respect to other beyond their own identity, cultural, civilization, religion, etc. So this is one thing that I would like to highlight. As a concluding remark, then Iwekaze or Indonesia's Western's Centrum of Wisdom and Culture of Indonesia seem to be a right place and vehicle for Indonesian Muslims, both for their identity formation and social integration. Nevertheless, it should be led by persons who consider the principle of ummatan wasatan, that is the Islamic Adab, the only guidance for both efforts, social integration, religious identity formation, which will enable them to reach wider groups there in Germany and respond to the anti-Islam, let's say the common phenomena of far-right wings like Alternative für Deutschland. This is the anti-Islam party which has been growing up to now and has launched a black campaign to the Muslim people living there. Then their attitude and viewpoints, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, show the respect for the principle. So that is all of my presentation. Hopefully then this is kind of beneficial information for you all, the participant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for Mr. Sujadi, Mr. Dr. Sujadi, for explaining us in details about the Muslims in Germany. as all we know that today world has been shaken by the pandemic, and it becomes a major issue in every corner, in every part of the world. And thank you as well for Mr. Suleiman for explaining us a very comprehensive thing about the Adab and it practices. And so now I will not hold this because there are people here on chats right now. They're asking whether is it possible to ask a question in Bahasa Indonesia or not, but I believe I can also help to translate that in English, so it's not going to be a problem. And since now this is going to be the question and ask session, I would like to let you know or inform you guys that if you would like to ask a question, you can also raise your hand, or you can also write in the chat. Like if you have the Zoom thing there, and there's going to be chat column where you can write everything down. And please mention to whom you're addressing the question for, okay? So that we're not mistaken, because we have two speaker for today, and we're going to have about that's about 20 minutes for this question and ask. So I'll open for first, let's see, for the five person who'd like to ask a question, please go ahead. And yeah, I will also later on, because there's an inquiry about it, later on I'll ask the committee to share the material, so that please, for both speaker, would you like to provide the materials and send it to us so that we were able to distribute to all the participants today. Thank you very much. So now question time. If you have question, if you probably wanted to know more about Muslim in Germany, or there's actually one person who asked a question already. It's from, hold on, let me scroll first because it's there. Okay, to Mr. Suleiman. There's one question from Ms. Fatia. That's one of the lecturer at our university. To Mr. Suleiman, Ms. Fatia asked about your opinion in this pandemic era. How far is Muslim adab management influence their lives in your country or in Indonesia or commonly in the world now? Thanks. So for Mr. Suleiman, please kindly to respond to this question. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Suleiman, could you hear me?
Hello?
Yes. So could you hear my previous question?
Yes, I have heard the question.
Yes. Okay. So would you mind to answer and response related to the question? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, please.
One very small question before you answer this. Do you speak Malay?
I do speak, but not a very deep one. Saya bercakap bahasa Melayu, tapi bukan yang dalam conference.
All right. So that now we all understand that if someone asks in Bahasa Indonesia, since Bahasa Indonesia and Malay is probably similar to each other, I'm going to help them to translate the question into English. So,
thank you.
No problem. Okay, so please go ahead and respond to the question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tuan Fatia, for your question. What I have explained about the Adab al-Islami and its discipline, Muslims in my country, they have implemented some of these principles because first of all, their soul has been accepted that this thing can happen at any time. So for them, it wasn't very sudden thing, this pandemic. That is number one. Number two, because Adab al-Islami is disciplinary in its dynamism, they use the Adab al-Islam disciplinary elements and self-control to discipline themselves. When they asked them to work from home, all Muslims were the ones who follow all these rules that has been put. So in my country, I can say especially, the Muslims did not betray the government in terms of the rules that has been put. And this is under the Adab al-Islami in the modern days. In some of the countries, as I mentioned, they have Shurtat al-Adab, meaning that the police of Adab. In many Muslim countries, they do not need that as well, including in my country. So in fact, in other Muslim country also, I have seen the other elements of Adab al-Islami, which is determination to face this pandemic. The Muslims are not in a very weak or in a very down spirit because of Adab al-Islami, which is Adab of soul. So you can see them doing all what they are able to do, either the Muslims in Europe or the Muslims in America. They are going on doing all what they are able to do. So in fact, the question is very, very, relevant. The Adab al-Islami, but some of the Muslims in other Muslims country, like in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Brunei, for the Adab al-Islam elements that I have mentioned, it is something innate in them, meaning that they are already used to it. So even if they are implementing it, they don't sense that they are implementing the elements of Adab al-Islami. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for responding to the question, and that's very enlightenment for all of us, since this pandemic has changed a lot of things. And next question is from Sri Windari. So that's her full name I'm mentioning. She's asking about how to face the social changes that occurred before and after the pandemic, because there must be a change. Please.
This is my question.
No, this is a question from Sri Windari. The next question, the second questioner. Yes. So she's asking how to face the social changes before and after the pandemic.
And automatically, there must be social changes, because in Adab al-Islami, as I mentioned, there is always the preparation, the elements of preparation towards what is going to happen for the Muslims in terms of the disciplinary elements of Adab. Therefore, after the pandemic, Muslims are able, if they follow the elements of Adab al-Islami, they are able to fix their life and also to take precautionary measures in terms of their times, in terms of their daily activities, in terms of their religious activities, in terms of their family activities. I believe that when Muslims follow what I have mentioned in terms of the elements of Adab al-Islami, before the COVID virus or COVID-19 virus, in fact, they are already implementing that. But after, I believe that they will take precautionary measures and they will be able to discipline themselves of whatever is going to happen. As in their religion and in their adab, it is already known that all things comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He doesn't tell us when it's going to happen, because He's the one who knows what is hidden. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Yeah. So far we have inquiries or a question for Mr. Suleiman. There's another one
Yes.
just coming in. So I'm going to help to translate for a bit. Hold on. Okay, so the next question is from Suri Maulida. Suri Maulida, and just asking about what do you think about the Umat Wasato nowadays? Could you explain about this thing in the Holy Quran and how to rise or how to motivate Muslims so that we Muslims are able to love Islam and able to apply all these Islamic principles in daily practices?
Okay, should I answer this question?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Suleiman. No worries.
I was very extremely happy when Dr. Sujadi mentioned about this ummatan wasata, which does not appear in my Adab al-Islami, because I mentioned it very lightly, but Dr. Sujadi has mentioned it as one very, very important and very open. We are the best ummah. Kuntum khayru ummatin ukhrijat linnas. Therefore, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that we are the best ummah, there must be conditions, which ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhawna 'anil munkar. And this is the disciplinary element also of Adab al-Islami that I mentioned. It is in the Quran, because in the Quran there are so many Quranic verses in terms of the discipline, that is, and always it is embedded about the ummatin wasata. We don't do things in extreme, and we don't lower ourselves down in terms of all our activities and also the problems that we face. This is under ummatan wasata. لأن خير الأمور أوسطها. And in this particular level, I have seen Muslims. This is my humble observation for the whole Muslims in the world. Muslims have no complaints, too much complaints, I can say, in terms of facing their daily issues, let alone their religious issues. In their prayers, they have been practicing now their prayers when they are locked down, and also when they are open to go to the mosque to pray with the Jama'ah. But once they know that the Jama'ah will harm, if they pray with the Jama'ah, it will harm them, they remain in their houses. Only few were very brave enough to do. But I was not in that support, because this pandemic has happened even in the Islamic history. And we have seen that even Ibn Sina mentioned about this. And the people made it as a movie, like in the Russian old movie. Ibn Sina is telling people that everybody should remain in his room. Nobody should come out, because the virus is not seen and nobody knows how it is. But it is always something that we should not get together. Once we get together, it will be able to harm us. Muslims implemented this, and this is from one of the important and genuine Muslim philosophers who mentioned about this. Therefore, ummatan wasata, as a Adab al-Islami principle from the Quran itself, has been implemented during this COVID, and it will also be implemented by the Muslims, and also not only the Muslims, because non-Muslims are looking at the behavior of the Muslims, and then they will also practice the same. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's very nice. Next question. Let me go to the next question. We have a very interesting questions. It's from Safwan Jamil. And I think for this question, both speakers can answer maybe. And Safwan Jamil said that if it's true that the pandemic is a result of economical politics in international level, or it also may be able to say that it's a world conspiracy. This is, well, yeah, since the outbreak or the pandemic start rising, conspiracy theory been blossoms everywhere. So how Islam should, or how, how Islam should put itself, or in particular, I would really say how we positioned ourselves as a Muslim so that we're not trapped in this situation, because there's a lot of people, or there's a lot of Muslims that being trapped here in this case already. So that's from Safwan Jamil. So can you respond? Start from Mr. Suleiman. Would you mind to respond? And then after, I would love to, maybe it's going to be very fair if we hear as well the opinion from Mr. Sujadi related to this question. So Mr. Suleiman, please, time is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. It is an important question. I haven't seen Muslims trapped in this pandemic time. Why? Because the faith of the Muslims are very strong, no matter how. So either this pandemic, it is caused by the economics or politics, but in general, who are the mechanism of the economics? Who are the mechanism of the economics and politics? It is human being, it is a man who is the mechanism of economics and politics. Therefore, it is also human made. So when we use the elements of Adab al-Islami, as I mentioned through my paper, that it is also to do with the human being as an individual. How does he behave himself? How does he discipline himself? So whenever we take this issue generally, and we are saying that it may be cause of politics, it may be cause of the economics, but we ask ourselves, who is the main mechanism for economics and the politics? It is human being. That is why the Islamic adab, either from Quran or Hadith or in the early Islam, Islam always start by dealing with the individuals. Why? Because individual is the one who constitute a group of people, and a group of people constitute the society, and the society constitute the civilization. So Adab al-Islam does not care about this is from the economics or from the politics, because Adab al-Islam is looking into who is the mechanism of this, and which is human being. So if we have a good human being, very disciplined human being, then the problem will be solved. And also if we look at this pandemic in a specific, or in its specific, not in general. For the West, for the maybe China and other countries, they may think that it is political, they may think that it is economical. But in Islamic adab, then we look at the who is mechanism of this. This is what I can say. And I think Dr. Sujadi may say the better things regarding this question. Thank you.
Okay, now for Mr. Sujadi. And before Mr. Sujadi responding all the question, now we're almost running out of time, so we have to close this question and ask later. But before we close, there are still two questions that address for Mr. Sujadi, and after that we can close that. Thank you very much. So please, Mr. Sujadi, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mas Sidik. Yeah, in relation to the economical conspiration or political conspiration coming from the China maybe, or coming from the United States maybe. So I can say that we don't think that the German government didn't care of the Muslim people there. So that's why the German government has tried to cope with the, let's say, COVID-19 pandemics phenomenon. And you can see that in early May, it was established a kind of policy for the people living in Germany, not only for the Muslim but also for others. And it was good news for the Muslim there, especially Indonesians Muslim there. Why? Um, as far as the lockdown was concerned, it was quite difficult for a Muslim, including Indonesia's Muslim there, to, let's say, perform Friday prayers, doing gathering, let's say Islamic gathering, for example. It is quite hard for them. But because of the early May policy of the, let's say, German government, it has allowed the Muslim there to perform their Friday prayers, and I think it is helpful and let's say good news for the Indonesians Muslim there, because they can do their religious activities as usual, but of course with the, let's say, the prescription, health prescription, hygiene prescription. This is also maybe the answer for the second question. So the government has already prescribed things that is related to the hygiene, health of the people. So no worries about the let's say economical political conspiration, because the government has tried to do best for to deal with the problems, so that the Muslim there can perform any religious activities. And so it is a kind of Islamic policy, I think. It means the German government has been being care of the prevailing situation, to deal with the let's say COVID-19 pandemic. So it is a kind of solution for the Indonesia's Muslim, for the Muslim living there. And in relation to the other question that I read here about the influence of the cartoons, let's say black campaigns happen to the people in France. I think Europe is small. Western Europe is small. So if you have been there when you would like to, let's say, to Germany from France, you may take about, let's say, 2 to 3 hours time. So it is quite small and not far distant. So anything happens to any countries in Western Europe, then easily happen to other countries, Netherlands, Germany, Austria, etc. But you have to know about the strengths of the, let's say, German policy government, the policy of German government, I think, because as I told you, the German government has quite good, strong enough policy for coping with the problems. So that's why the Muslims, including Indonesians Muslim living there, can enjoy the policy and can do their activities as usual, and they can, let's say, improve their let's say their activities as well, So it has no problem for Indonesian Muslim there, for Muslim living there, for, let's say, people living there. As far as the, let's say, far right, sorry, the anti-Islam party was concerned, it happened a lot about the black campaign of the party, but so far the German government has established a certain policy for that kinds of phenomenon. So anything about the radicalism, about the, let's say, extremism, about intolerance, can be solved by the German government, even though the anti-Islam party currently has currently been growing, but it doesn't mean that the extremism, the intolerance, and the radicalism, let's say, should be allowed to grow by the government. So that's why I think it is a good way of the German government to deal with any kinds of pandemic of COVID-19 or anti, let's say, Islam or radicalism. That's it, Mas Sidik. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Wow. It's such a very nice day to have all this discussion about Islam and pandemic, because nowadays we all realize that the whole world is in trouble probably and facing a very difficult economic recession. Anyway, we are running out of time. I will have to close the session. I'm really sorry. And thank you for all of you. Thank you for Mr. Suleiman. And thank you for Mr. Sujadi and everyone here. Thank you for Mr. Rizwarno, which is his right in front of me. And yeah, like, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone. And I wish you have a good day, and I'll see you again probably in the next session, or if there's another webinar. Thank you so much. And that's for me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you.
Mr. Suleiman.
Yes,
How
Doctor.
are you then? Okay.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes. Alhamdulillah. I can see you virtually then.
Yes, I'm extremely happy to see you.